Hello, and welcome to Mary Spring Nature Center's Tuesday Talks. I'm John Fromer, your host and the program director. Today's talk is generously sponsored by Camden River House, Camden National Bank, and Rennie's A Maine Adventure. Mary Spring is open every day of the year, dawn to dusk, free of charge. And you can visit Mary Spring online anytime at maryspring.org on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Mary Spring's mission is to practice, teach, and advocate sound principles of ecology, conservation, and horticulture in order to protect our natural environment and to provide natural landscapes and cultivated areas for public enjoyment. There are many benefits to being a member of Mary Spring Nature Center, including free admission to our spring, summer, and winter lecture series, 10% discount on most purchases, a share of the stewardship, and reciprocating privileges to more than 345 gardens nationwide. Mary Spring is a 501c3 nonprofit organization primarily funded through memberships, grants, and donations. You can donate securely online at maryspring.org. You can give us a call with your credit card at 207-236-2239 or mail your check made out to Mary Spring Nature Center and send it to P.O. Box 893, Camden, Maine 04843, and we thank you. This program was previously recorded on March 4th, 2025, entitled Maine Spring Birds and presented by Nick Lund of Maine Audubon. Pre-recorded Tuesday talks uploaded to Mary Spring's YouTube channel are generously sponsored by the Cascade Foundation.
All right. Hi, everyone. What's going on? It's me, Nick Lund, to talk about Maine's spring birds. Merry spring indeed, because spring is coming. It does not feel like it. And John and I were talking before we started. You have to be careful right now in March because, as we Mainers know, it is not spring yet. We want it to be spring. We want all the birds to come back, but it's not. We're not quite there because we're going to get a few more snowstorms. It's going to get cold again. So let's just hold our breaths and let's just think about migration, prepare ourselves. Now is the time that we can use to prepare ourselves for spring migration. So that's what we're going to do a little bit today. As I said, I'm Nick Lund, Advocacy and Outreach Manager for Maine Audubon. If you're not a member of Maine Audubon, please do join us. We are an outstanding organization. We've been around since 1843, trying to protect wildlife and wildlife habitat in the great state of Maine. MaineAudubon.org. We would love to have you as a member. So, like I said, this is what spring migration should feel like. Warm, spinning around in a field. There's plants growing. But for a lot of folks, spring migration is something a little scarier, right? All these birds are coming back. What are they? What are these noises I'm hearing? How are we going to get ourselves ready for this onslaught of birds, which is supposed to be the happiest thing of the year, but it can be daunting if you're not prepared. So I want to just get us prepared a little bit. What is migration, right? So we are on the cusp. We are on the earliest edge right now on March 4th of spring migration. In Maine, let me tell you, haven't really seen things moving yet, okay? I was driving on 295 yesterday, and I saw a crow carrying a stick. And what that means is that crow is building a nest, thinking about it. So there are signs when we look around that spring is already coming and birds are starting to think about it. But in terms of migration, we're not really there yet. A few species are maybe on their way, like woodcocks, but migration is coming. Migration is the seasonal movement of species, right? So birds in the United States, they fly north and south depending on the seasons to get ready for the breeding season and then to leave before it gets too cold. How many birds are we talking? We're talking a ton of birds, tons and tons and tons of birds, billions of birds. So right now, 3.5 billion birds are preparing themselves to make the trip from Mexico, the Caribbean, Central America, South America, into the United States and Canada as it warms up and as the conditions get better. Tons and tons of them. About 2.5 billion of those will pass through the United States into the boreal forests of Canada. They'll do their thing over the summer. And then even more birds, because they all had babies, will come south. So in August, September, October, 4 billion birds will start filtering south out of Canada. They'll join other birds in the United States, and they'll start coming south. This is a lot of birds on the move. And scientists have really figured out with great detail and greater detail every year how birds move, where they move, when they move, right? So let's show a couple examples here from the eBird website of birds on the move. This here is an eastern phoebe. This is my personal sign of spring. So when I start hearing phoebes, which will be end of the month, maybe, or very early April, I know this is real. We're done with the false winters. This is going to be real. And birds are coming back. So phoebes will start flying back pretty soon. I want to show you how they do it. So this is a map created on eBird of phoebe sightings in the United States and down into Mexico, wherever there are people using eBird. And over here, you see week of the year. We're in January right now. And so I'm going to press play, and this little video is going to run, and it's going to go through February, March, April, May. And you can see as the summer goes how these phoebes move north. So here we go. April, March, boom, late March, and then May, June, July, August, they're having babies. They're hanging out. September, October, they start slowly moving back south. Whoosh, look at that. Fine scale detail on here. The darker the areas, this is where there are more birds right now. So if you're right along the Gulf Coast, you're swimming in phoebes right now. But as we start going, let's try to look at Maine, March. Yeah, mid-March, and then earliest April, they're back up into Maine. So this is one to look out for here. They go all the way up into Canada and then contract back south. There's other ways to do this too. So in Maine, you can put this on a graph and really show when eastern phoebes start flooding back into Maine, right? So here we are. Where are we? We're right here. Oh, we're just about to get some liftoff. Really, next week, I guess, starting like, I don't know, whatever that is, the 8th, between the 8th and the 10th, in southern Maine, York County, they're going to start to get a few phoebes trickling in. And then it's going to pick up. And then really, what is this? April, the 1st of April, a giant tidal wave of beautiful little phoebes will come back into Maine. So keep your ears and eyes open. This, I promise, will happen. We just got to get through this month of March. Other birds have their own places that they go. This is a wood thrush, beautiful little wood thrush related to robin, sort of size and shape of a robin, but brown with all the spots on his chest. They spend their winter much farther south. So they're down here in Mexico, Yucatan Peninsula, and then Central America down through Panama there. And let's watch their migration. So again, we're in January here, and then we're going to go February, March, April, mid-April, May, all the way up. And then they start flooding back down. Very cool. A couple of things I want to point out here. One is, let's focus on this area right here. Okay, so you see this like lower Rio Grande Valley area of Texas, this sort of west coast of the Gulf down here. We will, let's keep an eye on that as they migrate. Notice how almost no birds come through there. Almost no birds. What wood thrush and millions of other birds decide to do, rather than just fly around this way, is they gather up there on the Yucatan Peninsula and they fly straight across the Gulf of Mexico. Look at that, into Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. They fly straight across. They have evolved, all these species have evolved to find it safer and faster just to fly directly to the United States this way than to go up around the edge. Pretty wild. The other thing that I like to point out for this map is look how much smaller this area is. Remember the Phoebe map? They were their wintering range was all the way up through like Virginia and Texas. But a lot of the birds that breed in Maine and Canada are on much smaller, much more condensed territories in the wintertime. There's a lot of forests and things down here that they can spend time in. But that means that impacts to southern wintering areas have outsized impacts on some of these birds. So if a giant area of forest is cut down here, that may impact a large swath of breeding birds from here. So we're really focused on conservation in southern latitudes. Here's another representation of how this wood thrush migration looks for Maine. You see here, look at this. We're not getting them in March. They just don't come back in March. We're not doing it. But we go March, April, and then after April 15th, we start to get a trickle, and then early May, mid-May is when the flood. That's a lot of birds come back at that time. And when I talk about a lot of birds, the most exciting birds for a lot of birders and a lot of Mainers are warblers. Warblers are like, the whole world is jealous of our warbler migration. There's like 27, almost 30 different species of warblers, these small insect-eating songbirds that all spend the winters down south and then flood back up into the United States in the spring, and they're all awesome. They all have their own beautiful different colors, their own patterns, their own songs, and finding each and every one of these species is real excitement for birders in spring. So that's what we're getting ready for. Like the other species, we know exactly when they're coming, right? And because they're insect eating, and I'll talk about this later, but because they're insect eating birds, they come a little bit later than birds like that phoebe, which can catch them earlier, different things. So here we are. This is a map showing all kinds of different species of warblers found or potentially found in Maine. And you can see that most of them are coming up in May, right? All that in May. Some of them are coming early, like whatever that one is. Pine warblers, yellow rump warblers, blackpoll warblers, or not blackpoll warblers. What color is that? Someone should really put numbers on these instead of colors. Some of these birds come back earlier than others, but most of the best birding in Maine, we're talking about number of species, is mid to late May, right about in here. And, just some appreciation to the ecology of some of these birds. All of these different warbler species have their own little niche, right? They all have their own unique part of the habitat that they exploit, that they've evolved to utilize. Here are 5 warblers showing where they, how they use one tree, right? Cape May warblers come eat the buds at the top of a pine tree. I remember we have a pine tree in my yard where sometimes in migration, we have Cape May warblers sitting right at the top of it. Black burning warblers use sort of the upper parts. Black-throated greens are in the middle, sort of top middle of the tree. Bay-breasted warblers focus on older needles and sort of some of the lichen on the middle branches. And then yellow rump warblers are sort of diving all around. Sometimes they're in the middle, sometimes they use the lower branches. So over time, all of these birds have developed their own sense of their own way to feed and their own way to coexist with each other and have evolved into different species. This happens across the map here, right? This is a graphic showing how different species of birds use different habitat types, right? So we have grasshopper sparrows and things that like to breed and spend their time on really short grass. So places like, Kennebunk Plains down here, and I'm sure some fields up in the mid-coast area are good spots for grasshopper sparrows. As it gets a little longer grass, we'll have meadowlarks and then field sparrows in areas that have like small shrubs. Common yellowthroats are down in sort of some of the rank vegetation along the water, red-eyed vireos in the trees, wood thrushes in deeper things, black and white warblers. So as not just different parts of the same tree that birds can use, but different habitats. So that's how all these birds are coming back. And this is not just for our songbirds too, right? We're thinking about shorebird migration coming in, which is a topic almost too daunting to take on right now. That's a dedicated presentation because shorebirds are very complicated to identify. But one of the ways we can appreciate them, and this is not a slide showing, this is from Europe, this is the best sort of example of this I could find, is that they've all evolved to coexist too. If you had all these shorebirds competing for the same food in the mud or in the intertidal zone, they would sort of overcompete with each other. But over time, each of these species has evolved a different technique to catch food that no one else is catching. And one of the ways you can identify that is from their bill shape, right? So you have birds with really long bills, like this curlew. This is an old world bird that can reach way down to grab these shrimp that burrow way into the ground. You have different lengths. So this bar-tailed godwit reaches down this long to find things there. This pied oyster catcher goes down this long to grab the top of worms and other things that are down there. Some crabs have burrows that sort of arc underneath the mud. Can't avoid a whimbrel. They're sneaking right in there, grabbing those guys. And then other birds with different lengths, turnstones, green shakes, can pick things off the surface or find things just below the surface. So these evolutions have allowed these birds all to coexist, and you can view that during migration. Migration is not just for our songbirds, okay? One of the most famous birds in Maine is the loon, of course. And loons migrate too, but they don't migrate for the same reasons that our songbirds do. Loons, as we all know, breed on lakes and ponds. The trouble with breeding on a lake or a pond is that in the wintertime, it freezes solid and you got to get the heck out of there, right? So lakes and ponds are a great place to breed because it's relatively calm. There's quick access to food. You don't have the tides like going in and out, so you can't. If a tide went out when the loon was on its nest, it would have a really hard time walking down to the edge. So they go up to lakes and ponds for the summertime, which is great, but they got to migrate. But they don't migrate to South America. They don't migrate very far. They only go as far as they need to find open water. And so in Maine, that is just the coast, right? So the loons that we have here in Maine, one of the cool things, if you have a cabin or something, or a lake, or a camp on a lake or a pond, the birds that you are seeing breeding in the summertime are also probably spending their winters in the Gulf of Maine. So they're not going very far. If you walk down to the pier at Rockland and looked at any of those common loons, you can probably see right off the pier. That is probably one that is breeding in Maine or in Canada in the summertime. This is a map showing where loons are at different times of year. And so in the winter, they're all here along the coast just because there's plenty of fish and there's no ice to trap them. And then in the summertime, they spread out all over the lakes and ponds across Maine. Also have raptors that are coming to migrate, right? Can't wait. Broad-winged hawk is one of the most numerous hawks in Maine. In the summertime, these smallish hawks, they're related to red-tailed hawks, sort of same that bulky buteo shape, as they're called, but they're smaller, and they live deep in the forest. These are not ones that you see like perched on the road next to the highway like you see red-tails. They go deep into the forest, but there's a ton of them. And because they're sort of smaller and a little less conspicuous, a lot of people don't notice them, but they have a huge migration. Unlike red-tailed hawks, for the most part, all the broad-winged hawks migrate out of here. So they come up in the summer and then they get the heck out of here in the winter. Here's where they get the heck out of here too. They have a really sort of broad southern distribution, from some in southern Florida. We got Cuba. We got some of the, Lesser Antilles over here, Mexico, down through Central America, all the way through the Andes. So this is a numerous bird, and they all spend time down there. Let's watch how they go through the year. Again, let's keep our eye on how they move through this area and through Central America. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, the Appalachians and across Canada, all the way back down. So unlike songbirds, which usually most of them just jump straight over the Gulf, raptors don't like to do that. Raptors don't like to leave land for the most part. And so raptors will go all the way through Mexico and staying on land. And they'll also go through this tiny little tight spot in Panama. So watch how purple that gets right now. Ooh, it's like very dark. There are huge spectacles of raptor migration in Panama City and Panama, as all these broad-winged hawks, Swainson's hawks, ferruginous hawks, you name it, fly over land all the way through as they trace their way back up into the United States. Very cool. So broad-winged hawks will be coming in a few months. It takes a little while to get here. If you have hawk watches nearby, they're a great bird to watch during hawk watch migration. Not all raptors migrate over land, not all of them. Osprey is just about the only one that does it. Ospreys don't mind the water at all. They love the water. and are perfectly happy with migrating straight over the water instead of going wrapping around all the way through Panama. Here are some images of osprey migration from Maine and Cape Cod. They hang the coast down and go through Florida and just bounce from island to island all the way down. Some spending the winter all the way deep in the Amazon, some spending on the coasts of Colombia and Venezuela, but they spread out all through the South America in the wintertime and then fly all their way back up. In Maine, these are also known as one of the earliest arriving birds, right? Because they can feed on the ocean. They don't need to wait for lakes and ponds to thaw out, in theory, although they do typically breed, further inland. But they will come and hang out on the coasts pretty early. So we start seeing ospreys in Maine really the second half of March, which is another great sign of spring. You can see the bulk of them are in here by mid-April. They're really all back in town by mid-April. And then they breed, and then they head out of here by the 1st of November, they're gone. And I should just say, not all birds migrate, right? We have plenty of birds that don't migrate, and it's because they don't need to eat insects, right? So one of the big reasons, and I'll show it in a second, why birds migrate is because they eat insects. Insects are a great source of food, especially for baby birds, and there are no insects in the wintertime. So one of the sort of few really good things about the winter in Maine is that there's no bugs to bother you. Here's a host of birds. This is a cedar waxwing. This is a black-capped chickadee. This is a red crossbill. You can see that each of these are eating. We got berries here. We got berries here, and we got pine seeds for the siskin. So because these birds have figured out a steady source of food that'll sustain them through the winter, they're like, I'm not going to migrate. That's hard and it takes a long time. It hurts my wings. I'm just going to stay here and eat. So let's talk about a little bit about migration. Most birds migrate at night. Most songbirds that we're talking about migrate at night. Hawks migrate during the day because they use the thermals to help them fly, and because they like to see the prey below them so they can get a snack. But most songbirds, which are snacks, like to go at night because there aren't hawks out to get them. It's generally calmer at night sometimes, and because they use the stars to help migrate, to help navigate. One of the ways that people used to understand migration back in the old days was point a telescope at the moon and watch birds flying by it. You can see here, there's a little bird caught flying past the moon at night. We've learned a lot about how birds migrate and when they migrate, and it's pretty cool. I recommend everybody this spring visit this website, which is called Birdcast, which is like forecasting for bird migration. It's super cool, and it'll tell you night by night, every night, what the conditions are for migrant birds. Is there a weather pattern? So see this big black thing here? That's like that's a storm. Precipitation, which knocks birds down. They don't like to migrate through that. And so if you're right here on this red, if you live in like whatever that is, St. Louis or something, you're going to have all these birds migrating. They're going to hit this wall of rain, and they're going to drop out of the sky. It's going to be sweet. This is where you want to be. But for every night, they will tell you which birds are migrating, how good the conditions are, how many birds might be moving. And so this is something that you could just like really prepare yourself for, to really figure out which days you're going to pretend that you're sick and call out of work so you can go birding, or otherwise when to be out. Again, I should say, why are all these birds doing this? Or spoil it already, but they're doing it because of insects. Insects which blossom on the landscape in the spring are the best food for birds, especially for birds who are having baby birds, right? And when I say insects, I don't really mean this. I really mean this. Caterpillars are the best food absolutely possible for baby birds. In the spring and summer, there are plentiful caterpillars on the landscape, right? They're all bebopping around, and they're easy to catch relatively, and they're just packed with protein, right? They're these slow-moving, protein-filled burritos that birds catch and have a great meal out of them. There are studies about the importance of caterpillars to birds. One researcher, they sat there and watched a chickadee. This is a Carolina chickadee, go back and forth to the nest to feed when they fed their babies. And that's all these birds do during the sort of 2 weeks plus that they have tiny babies in the nest. All the adult birds do is grab a caterpillar, bring it back, shove it in the mouth of their baby, go back and forth, both parents back and forth. Researchers have found that's between 350 and 570 caterpillars every day for more than 2 weeks to raise one clutch of chickadees, just tiny little chickadees, right? That's over 10,000 caterpillars just to raise one clutch of chickadees. And that's one nest of one pair of chickadees, not to mention all the other chickadees, all the other birds out in the landscape, all trying to find caterpillars to feed their babies. It's really important. Insects are not just important for chickadees and things, but even for hummingbirds. I hope you're all sitting down for this, but we all know that hummingbirds drink nectar out of flowers as their food. But guess what? About 75% of their diet is made up of insects. Insects are just that much more nutritious than anything that comes out of a flower. And so hummingbirds like this one, they will take their ability to hover in place and fly very aerodynamically to pluck spiders off spider webs, right? Perfect. They can hover right in place and pluck it off. So hummingbirds, even though we know that they are, nectar drinking birds, love spiders as well. So this is my sort of advocacy part of this thing. What can you do in your backyard to promote the growth of delicious caterpillars that birds need to feed their babies? You can plant native plants. Native plants are much better than anything else for producing the types of the food that birds need. Way better than your backyard feeder, way better than, I don't know, whatever else you have. Planting native plants is the way to get the delicious caterpillars that birds need to raise their babies. There are plenty of websites out there you can go to figure out what plants work the best. These two right here, red oak and black cherry, are two of the absolute best. These things are absolute caterpillar buffets for the birds that we love. And so if you plant these or others, I'm sure John in his gardening class can talk to you about some other native plants you can plant. This is how you get baby birds back there. And I should just say too, one of the reasons that native plants are so important is because insects and plants are in sort of an evolutionary arms race, right? So insects, caterpillars eat leaves, eat plants. Plants don't want to be eaten. And so plants develop these defenses to try to stop themselves from being eaten. They have poisons or barbs or otherwise distasteful to insects. But certain insects are like, well, I need to eat, so I'm going to figure out a way to eat something. And they figure out a way around the defenses of certain plants. But over time, you can't find loopholes and ways around the defenses of everything. And so what happens is insects end up specializing in particular plants that they can eat. Monarchs here are a great example. Monarchs eat milkweed. That's all they eat. They don't eat other plants. And milkweed is poisonous, right? Milkweed has this white milky substance that is distasteful and poisonous to everything. But monarchs have found out a way around it. They have this special sodium pump in their bellies that they can digest the stuff. So what that means is that monarchs are specialized to milkweed. If you have milkweed, you're going to have monarchs. If you don't have milkweed, you're not going to have monarchs because they can't just move over and eat something else. So that's sort of an example of the specialization. Please go look for some native plants to plant. Maine Audubon has a great Bring Nature Home program where you can see what will work for you. National Audubon has it too, and the Wild Seed Project and others. So plant native plants if you can. I also want to sort of get you ready in other ways. It's also great and fine to feed birds in your backyard. I will give you a tip. If you're buying seed, though, write this down. Just like any other product, if you buy a bag of birdseed, you can look on the back and see the ingredients. You don't want to buy Milo. You don't want to buy Milo. Milo is this red stuff right here. It looks for all the world like anything that birds would eat. And some birds, like turkeys or doves, may eat Milo, but the vast majority of birds just don't eat it. Don't eat it. But all these wild bird companies, seed companies, will just dump their Milo into their packages because it looks like a seed. Because people don't know any better. But you're just wasting your money. You're just throwing your money away if you buy Milo. It'll rot in the feeder, or you'll just throw it away in your garage or wherever. So avoid Milo. Instead, focus on the other pieces. There are plenty of good seed mixes out there that don't have Milo, but if you're in especially like a bargain store, you want to watch out for Milo. The other thing I say about bird feeding is get creative, right? Think outside the seed. There's plenty of cool things you can do to attract other birds that aren't interested in seeds. Um, my most favorite thing to do in the springtime is attract orioles. So in May, late May especially, there are ways you can attract orioles to your feeder, and there is really nothing better than having an oriole at your feeder. They are looking sharp in the spring. What I do, so they love grape jelly. They love grape jelly. Don't know really why. It's sugary and fruity, and they love it. Grape is the preferred flavor. Don't know why. But this person put a little cup of grape jelly out. That's kind of advanced. One thing that I do that works magnificently is you take an orange, cut it in half, and then stick the orange, cut side out onto a branch, right? So you just stick it out so the cut side is facing out. Orioles, catbirds love eating those oranges. Super easy feeder to do. You can bring in some really, really cool birds. You can hang suet in suet cages. This hairy woodpecker down here is eating. Suet is just rendered fat that is packed into a little cake that birds love to eat. Woodpeckers love it. All kinds of birds, even warblers and things, love suet. So take a look at that. And then hummingbirds. I love to plant native plants and that have flowers that hummingbirds love. It's always more fun to get a picture of a hummingbird drinking from an actual flower than sitting on a plastic feeder, I think. But these feeders work great. One thing I will say about hummingbird nectar is don't buy the red stuff at the store. Don't buy the red stuff. The hummingbirds aren't looking for the color of the nectar. They aren't looking at the color. They're looking at the yellow flowers there. So the color is just for marketing stuff. It's not beneficial to the birds, and it's actually maybe harmful to the birds because there's some red dyes in there that might be harmful. So don't buy red stuff. Make your own hummingbird feeder. Very easy. 4 parts water to 1 part plain white sugar. No sugar with molasses on it. I boil it together, and then that's it. Hummingbird nectar works great. Just quickly, feeder safety. Keep your feeders clean. They can get rotten if there's water in them, or if stuff is very old, or other birds sort of poop on them. So keep them clean. If you have heavy traffic, once a week would be great if you can clean them out. Prevent window strikes by placing windows either very close to a window, so birds can't sort of fly fast enough to hurt themselves, or far away from a window where they're away. And then keep cats away. Frankly, cats are the major predator for birds at the feeder. There may be hawks and things too, but that's sort of a natural predation. So keep cats away if you can. All right, I'm gonna try to stop by 12:50 or 45, so I'll keep going here. Finally, to prepare yourself for spring, put some houses up. Get some birds in your backyard. Bird houses are awesome, and it's really fun to watch baby birds grow up in your backyard. What is a birdhouse, right? It's weird. Birdhouses aren't, they don't like naturally build roofs and houses. What birdhouses are mimicking a tree cavity, right? So lots of birds, like these, including chickadees, like this guy sticking his little head out there, nest in tree cavities, holes that are excavated by woodpeckers or other critters. Makes sense. They're safe and warm and protected from the elements. But humans have cut down a lot of dead trees and clear up a lot of that stuff. And so tree cavities are harder to come by than they used to be. So putting out tree houses can really help. But here's the thing. Birds are very particular about their home. And different species have very particular needs for their houses. It's if you just go out there and throw out a birdhouse without thinking about it, you may not get any birds at all. You may get mice like I've had back in my house, or you may get house sparrows or sort of less exciting birds. Do you want to get good birds, native birds? You got to put a little bit of thought into how you hang your birdhouse. I recommend this other Cornell website called Nest Watch. Nest Watch has all kinds of information about how to place a birdhouse to be successful for the species you want. Right. So if you want to get barn swallows, tree swallows, eastern bluebirds, chickadees, house wrens, you name it, go in there, type the species, and it'll tell you, you put it this high off the ground, you have it facing north or west, and you have the hole be a certain size. All that stuff is really important. And when you have that information, you are more successful. Okay. What am I gonna see? Let's prepare ourselves a little bit. This is the thing that I don't do well enough. I often lead bird walks for Maine Audubon in the spring, and it's not until like that first drive over to the birding spot that I'm like listening to all the calls again, be like, oh my god, what do these birds sound like? It can be a lot, and so preparation is really really helpful to start thinking now, literally now, about the birds, so you can identify them when they're coming back. So let's talk about warblers in a second. For a second, I said we have like almost 30 different species of warblers that are possible in Maine. They're all hard. They all have their own sort of costumes and songs, but some of them look alike. And so I'm just going to run through a couple of them right now to start us sort of thinking about these warblers and what they look like. And I'm going to break them down into a couple different categories. First are the black and white ones. We have the black and white warbler. We have the black pole warbler. We have the yellow rumped warbler right here. Okay, these are fairly simple. Yellow rumped is a really good sort of starter warbler. They come back early, so they will be here in early April. They are conspicuous, right? They have these yellow sort of stained armpits. They have a yellow rump, which you can't really see. And they hang out. They don't sort of hide themselves, right? They're sort of flitting around. They catch insects and they flash when they fly. So yellow rumped warbler, although they're mostly black and white, have this yellow, which is really helpful. Black and white warbler is also very numerous and conspicuous, but a little different. So they don't flash and fly around. They like to hop around a tree branch, just like a nuthatch. So they will stay right on the trunk or the limb of a tree and sort of bounce around. They are black and white, and they sort of have this referee pattern. So they look like sort of a basketball ref, striped black and white, especially on the head. Blackpoll warblers are very cool, endangered in Maine, threatened in Maine, breed in the boreal forest, and they're black and white too, but they sort of have a black and white cookie head, right? You know those cookies that are like look like that. So instead of the stripe pattern, they have a sort of solid black and white. They hang out at the tops of trees. They have a very high pitched song. And these pink legs are very helpful. They come a little later in the year, and really one of the latest warblers to migrate through in late May and early June even. Now we get the orange ones, okay? American red star is an absolute stunner. I cannot wait for red stars, but they're maybe my most exciting bird to see every year. I call them the Halloween warblers. They again are very conspicuous. They are the males at least are black and orange. These flashy tails that they flash around. They hang out around in the mid stories of trees. Black burning warblers are absolutely beautiful, but often hard to see. They stay way up at the tops of trees. Sometimes I'm sure in the Mary Spring area there are places you can see them, Camden Hill State Park maybe, where you go up and you get some elevation change and you may be able to see some like at eye level. You know, if there's the treetop next to you, check that out because they are like unbelievably amazing to look at. They hurt your eyes. And then bay-breasted warblers. Bay-breasted warblers are easily overlooked. There are fewer of them that come through in the spring. They're less numerous than these other ones. This beautiful sort of bay color, this reddish color, as they move through. So those are the red and orange ones. Blue and black. Northern parallel, beautiful color blue. You got this sort of tequila sunrise pattern here. Morning warbler is what we call a skulker. So they stay way out of view on the ground, low down in the dense stuff. They have this black bib and this gray head. Black-throated blue warbler might be my most favorite, most beautiful bird of all time. Beautiful dark blue with this black coming down, this little white handkerchief on the wings. A stunner. And then the yellows. We got a lot of yellow ones. Yellow warbler, makes sense. All yellow, this orange chest on the males. We got black-throated green. I guess it's green, but it's mostly yellow, this yellow and black. Magnolia warbler with the stripes down here. Common yellow throat, Nashville warbler, Cape May. Okay, so at least, look, this is still a lot, and it's still hard, but it's not 27, right? You can at least break it into this is a yellow one. Let me focus on the yellow ones as I go ahead and work on my identifications. And then these other ones. These are two early birds. These are some of the earliest warblers that migrate through. The palm warbler, which stays low and then like bops its tail. It like will perch and then like flick its tail a bunch. And then pine warbler, which stays up higher in the trees, but is mostly yellow. Okay, look, we're just getting started. We're just rolling into the warblers. We're just getting used to the names, taking a look at the colors, so we can prepare ourselves for May when they're all flooding back. Um, I have time for a couple more. So I got a bunch more identifications. I'm going to run through some common identifications so we're ready. These two birds are here now, but these are common birds at our feeders that we should be aware of. So we can identify them when we see them. These are both nuthatches. Nuthatches are cool little songbirds that pluck insects from inside bark, pull them out of the crevices in the bark. They also eat seeds, but they love insects. We have two species here. We have the white-breasted and the red-breasted. This is a good one to start in because this is fairly simple. One has a clean white breast. One has a red breast. Look at that. The one with the red breast is the red-breasted nuthatch. The one with the white breast is the white-breasted nuthatch. Look at that. Birding is easy. We also have two chickadees in Maine, believe it or not. This guy over here is much more rare and really only found in some of the wilder parts of northern Maine. But we have the black-capped chickadee and the boreal chickadee. Black-capped chickadee is our state bird, our most familiar and friendly bird that we have at our feeders in the middle of the woods or everywhere. They got this black cap, as in the black-capped chickadee. Boreal chickadees are, like I said, more scarce, and they're really exciting to see. They have a brown head. They have this really strong washed pattern here on the side, much stronger of a coloration than the black cap. We have woodpeckers, right? These are two of our most common woodpeckers. These are two females, and the males will have red on the backs of their heads right here. It's pretty crazy. These birds, which look almost identical, are not that closely related. They are not each other's closest relatives, believe it or not, but they've co-evolved to look alike because it's a coloration that works. How do we tell them apart? Well, it's easy when they're sitting next to each other like this. One is smaller than the other. This is the downy woodpecker, and this is the hairy woodpecker. So the hairy is the bigger, and the downy is smaller. How do you remember that? Well, you could say down, small is down. So when I see a smaller one, I know it's down, small, downy. Or you could say hairy for huge, hairy. I don't know. One of the best ways to do it if you see them on their own, because it can be when you only see one of them, you obviously don't have something to compare to. It's great to look at the relative bill length here. So on a downy woodpecker, the bill barely comes out of the feathers on its face, like barely sticks out. But on a hairy woodpecker, that thing shoots out of there like a big nail sticking out the front. So I like to look at the bill length. And if it's a big old bill sticking out, then that's a hairy. If it's a teeny little thing, a little nail, then that's a downy. Let's do a couple more. Here are two migrant raptors that we will start seeing pretty soon. One is an osprey and one is a bald eagle. These they both look alike relatively, give people a lot of confusion. Obviously, if you see an adult bald eagle, they're fairly easy to identify because they will have a full white head and a full white tail. But for juvenile birds, which is like up to 4 years, they have sort of speckled black and brown and white down here, and they can be very difficult to identify. A lot of people mistake them for golden eagles. A lot of people mistake them for ospreys. Ospreys will start to see, like I said, a lot of migrants coming through soon. They're also sort of speckled brown and white down below. One major way to tell them apart is to look at the wings. Look at the wings. So a bald eagle has these really straight, and even when you see them flying, it's like straighter across than this. So it'll be like a head with like just two straight wings coming out the front. Ospreys have a crook at their elbows, a really prominent crook. Every osprey has this crook right here, and no bald eagles have this. And so if you see a large brown and white raptor flying, in April, take a look at the wings to see if it's an osprey or a bald eagle. All right, finally, I'm just going to go with these three beautiful birds. These are red birds that we may have migrating through. Some of them we have right now. So this guy here are at our feeders right now, probably depending on where you live. This, of course, is a northern cardinal, beautiful bird. And this over here is a house finch, beautiful bird. Both of them are great, but neither of them are quite as exciting as this scarlet tanager, which is a bright red bird that you should not avoid. Scarlet tanagers may come to your feeders. They may come to eat mealworms, or they may come to eat oranges if you want. They, of course, are about the same color as a cardinal, but they're even brighter and more amazing. They have these jet black wings on the males down here, jet black wings. So put some mealworms out, put some oranges out, and take a look at what you got. So I'm going to stop there for now and to see if there are any questions. And then I could jump back in and do more birds if folks want or don't have any questions. If you do have questions, go in. I can see this one here.
Yep.
All right. Do you need a telescope to see birds passing by the moon? No. I mean, binoculars help. And if you go out on a full moon and stare with binoculars, you don't need to, you can't really see them with your bare eye. It's pretty hard to see them with your bare eyes. But you don't need a telescope. I would recommend binoculars. Would have been cool to have bird songs included. Well, let's just do some bird songs. If folks want to hear some bird songs, let me know what you want to hear and I'll play bird songs. Hopefully my mic should pick it up. Sometimes it doesn't. Let me see here. Laura, any bird songs you want to hear or learn about? Vireo. Let me just do a test first because sometimes the audio doesn't work. John, can you hear, or can you guys hear this?
Yeah.
You can. Canada Goose. All right, we'll play Vireo. So there are a bunch of vireos in Maine. Vireos are these songbirds. They have a little hooked bill for catching insects, and they are pretty cool. They're sort of like the overlooked cousins of the warblers. They're not quite as colorful, but they are cool. The most numerous one we have is the red-eyed vireo. That looks like. Let me see if I can shut this off here. Well, I don't know if I can get that to work because it's so bright. But, well, it's a red-eyed vireo. Very beautiful bird. And they are known for being sort of incessant songsters. Red-eyed vireos sing all day long, nonstop, from the very tops of treetops. You rarely see them, but you can hear them all the time. And they go like this. They do this like series of 3-note phrases. Here I am, up here, in the tree. Here I am, look at me, up here. Here's what that sounds like, if you can hear this. Can you hear that?
Yes.
So they'll sing during the middle of the day when most birds aren't singing, and they'll just like 3-note phrases. Here I am, up in the tree. That's the vireo to know. Eagles. So the sound of an eagle is pretty goofy. I was asked by NPR one time to make a list of the weirdest bird sounds in the United States. Actually, the dumbest bird sounds is what they asked me to do. I don't know why they asked me, but they did. And I put eagle on there because bald eagles are not as majestic. You know, in a movie, you watch and a bald eagle flies away and it goes, ah! A majestic call. It's actually a red-tailed hawk scream, not a bald eagle at all. Because bald eagles have sort of a goofy sort of chuckling laugh as their song. Sounds almost like a gull of some kind. Not really a majestic, powerful song, but that's what they sound like. Emily, January 19th, a gang of robins swooped by to feed on one of our native shrubs. Were they coming or going? Heck yeah. They weren't doing anything. So one of the common misconceptions we have out there is that robins are migratory. Robins are not really migratory. Robins will stay in Maine all year round. What they do is in the summer, they spread out across the landscape. They pull worms out of our yards and they go breed in the woods. And in the winter, they all just come together into big flocks, 40 or 50 or more, and find native shrubs to eat on. So if you go to certain places in Maine in the winter, you can see massive collections of robins feeding on things like winterberry or staghorn sumac or you name it. And they stay together. So those birds, the birds that you saw, which thank you for putting out a native shrub for them to feast on, they weren't really coming or going. They were just sort of making a pit stop. and eating. One thing I will say as a birder, please, if you have a big flock of robins, please take a look through them, because you may get a really cool rare bird mixed in. The most exciting stuff is that if there are sort of relatives of robins that live in Europe, sometimes they will, and some of them do migrate, but sometimes they'll go the wrong way and get mixed in with our flocks of robins, and that would be really rare. So if you see a robin that doesn't look like a robin in your flock, call me first, and take a picture, and we'll try to go take a look.
I've got a couple of questions. There's two there. One is one of the most recognizable warbler songs for me is the common yellowthroat.
Yeah.
Same person question, is it too cold for magpies in Maine?
Yeah, it's not too cold, but they just don't live here. Unfortunately, magpies live out west. Magpies are beautiful corvids, relatives of crows. They're like one of my favorite birds. They're absolutely beautiful, black and white, but they just don't live in Maine or the whole East Coast for whatever reason. So it's not really the cold. It's just their evolutionary history.
Okay. A couple other questions. Is the insect population in Maine stable, rising, or declining? And if it is declining, what will be the impact on warblers and other birds?
Yeah, it's likely declining. We strongly believe that it is declining. One of the trouble with insect studies around the world is that people don't do a lot of sort of insect biomass studies in the past. And so we don't have great data, historical data, to compare what sort of insect biomass was decades ago to compare to today. But we do believe, based on the studies that do exist or other studies, that insect populations are declining quite dramatically. The population, the impacts are bad. There will be fewer insects for birds to eat, and then fewer birds can survive because there's a lack of food. Planting native plants is Maine Audubon's sort of flagship program to try to prevent this decline. A lot of non-native plants have defenses that no insects can get around, right? So ginkgo biloba trees, right? Ginkgo trees, really popular in a lot of streetscapes. Not native to the United States, and no insects eat them. Just nothing is on a ginkgo tree, which means that it's just a complete food desert for any native birds or other wildlife. And so if we were to replace those with oaks or something else, you would have a lot more food on the landscape. So trying our best to replace non-native plants with native plants is our best opportunity to stabilize or reverse insect declines.
Okay, I've got another couple of questions for you. Could you talk about owls nesting with respect to when they lay their eggs?
Yeah, owls nest early. Most owls are probably nesting about now. You hear a lot of them singing in January, February, March, that they're sort of getting with their mates and getting together. Because birds like owls and eagles are so big, and their babies take so long to get to a size where they can fledge, those birds generally start earlier than others. Also, because their foods, they don't need to wait for their food, right? They have evolved, they can find rodents. Owls can in the wintertime. Eagles can find fish or scavenge other things in the wintertime, and so they can get started early. And so they're going now. So a lot of eagles are probably, or owls are in cavities or nesting right now, may have eggs, and may have babies fairly soon.
Cool. Let's see. There's one question, another from Laura. What about bird flu and MIG?
Migration, probably.
Oh, migration. Okay.
Bird flu is no good. Bird flu has tremendous impacts on a variety of birds right now in Maine and around the world. Maine Audubon is carefully monitoring the situation and will make recommendations as necessary. Some people in certain other years with either bird flu or other illnesses, people have recommended to take down bird feeders. Because bird feeders can act as a place where birds come together and then can potentially transmit diseases to each other. We're not recommending that at this point. Right now, it's more of a sort of waterfowl, bigger bird problem. And so we're not worried about bird feeding right now. unless you have areas where lots of waterfowl come together to feed, which does happen. In that case, or if you're, if you have livestock or waterfowl that you're raising, please get the information you need. Be very careful about bird flu because it is here and it's not pleasant.
Would you mention very early on I think it was eBird migrations. Would you mention just really quickly, if you remember I know it's the Cornell Ornithology. Is everything on their website basically? Or are they multiple websites or?
Yeah, multiple. Cornell. I mean, if you go to the Cornell Lab of Ornithology website, they have everything you need. They are the best in the business in terms of putting out cool products for birders to use. Cornell produces eBird. eBird is the site that most every single birder around the world goes to input their sightings. So you can look in your backyard, you can write down what you saw, and then it'll keep your own personal list, so you're all organized. But it'll also add your sightings to this huge database of bird sightings around the world. So it's great. Cornell has Birdcast. So Birdcast is the website that you use to figure out how good the migration is going to be that night or what's happening during migration, spring and fall. They have Nest Watch, where you can learn about how to provide nests for the species you want. And they have all kinds of other stuff I can't even think of because they're doing so much all the time. So check out the Cornell Lab and they have what you need.
Well, that's great. Nick, thank you. This has been fabulous.
My pleasure.
Awesome. And next year we'll do something a little different if you would like to. And really, really great to get people thinking and get them going and start reviewing the bird sounds now before they get here and all that good stuff.
Heck yeah. And I realized I did the whole thing with one of my buttons undone up here and one in. So fixed it now. John, it was a pleasure. I love visiting Mary Spring and doing presentations with you all. So thanks for having me back.
Great. Thank you. And we'll see you all next week. And Nick, awesome.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you for joining Mary Spring Nature Center's recorded Tuesday talks. For more information, please visit maryspring.org. We hope you'll consider supporting Mary Spring. You can donate securely at maryspring.org. Give the office a call at 207-236-2239 or mail your check to Mary Spring Nature Center, P.O. Box 893, Camden, Maine 04843, and make your check payable to Mary Spring Nature Center. Thank you, and we hope to see you again.